Hey, thanks for clicking on this video. Imagine you're just relaxing at home when you suddenly smell something strange and overpowering. It's not just any smell, it's suspicious, like chemicals. The smell is so strong that even your neighbors can sense it. A middle-aged couple starts to feel something's not right and decides to find out where it's coming from. As they follow the trail, they end up at a quiet, seemingly abandoned house. What they found inside? You wouldn't believe it. This is one of the weirdest and most gruesome cases in Hong Kong during the 1990s. A flight attendant ended up dead and mutilated. So what really happened behind this case? Let's uncover it together in this mysterious story. Great to have you guys back. This story takes place in Sha Tin, Hong Kong, which is in the eastern part of the New Territories. Sha Tin was originally known as Li Wan, meaning Clear Water Bay. Back in 1970, Sha Tin went through a big transformation due to a large-scale land reclamation project. Before that, the southern part of Sha Tin was just an artificial river channel called Shingmun River, while the main part of the new town of Sha Tin was developed on reclaimed land. Today, the old Sha Tin area west of Shingmun River has been built into the Sha Tin city center. This is where the murder happened on Tuesday, May 12, 1989. Hong Kong was entering summer, and due to the southwest monsoon, the weather was hot and it often rained. That night, the Sha Tin police received an emergency call. The callers were a middle-aged couple who reported smelling a strange odor in their home, possibly coming from the house across the street. At first, they didn't think it was anything to worry about, and only one person went to check it out. But the smell kept lingering for days without any signs of going away. So, they hoped the police could investigate and handle the situation. This couple lived in Sok Po Hang village in the southern part of Sha Tin, a village with a history of over 200 years. They had just found out that the house across from them, number 33, often had people they didn't recognize going in and out. Whenever these people were inside, they played loud music, causing a lot of disturbance to the other neighbors. This couple had tried knocking on the door across the street once, and a man and woman who looked disoriented answered. The couple asked what was going on inside the house and why it smelled so bad. The two people nervously said there was a dead animal in their house and they were taking care of it soon. The couple became suspicious that these people might be using or even making drugs inside the house, which could explain the smell. After getting the report, the police quickly sent a team to check out house number 33 in Sok Po Hang village. House number 33 had a Spanish architectural style and was a 3-story building. The couple claimed the smell was coming from there. The police started their investigation by heading up to the second floor and knocking on the door. A man and a woman opened it. They both looked sluggish, like they were on drugs. The man was named Huang David, 33 years old, and the woman was Yumulin, 27 years old. They were a couple. After the investigators identified themselves, they entered the room. On the coffee table in the living room, they found several packets of cocaine powder. The police immediately secured the two and searched the place. When they found out that the third floor was also rented by David, the investigators moved up there. As soon as they opened the door, they were hit with an overwhelming stench. After some searching, they realized the smell was coming from the bathroom. In the bathtub, there was a large metal box with a lid that had ventilation holes, and it was emitting a strong odor. The smell was so intense that the investigators struggled to breathe and had to step back for a moment. The smell was weird, sharp, rotten, and acidic. The officers covered their noses and mouths and asked David and Lynn what was inside the metal box. Both of them just stood there, silent and staring blankly. Seeing this, the investigators decided to open the box. As soon as they did, a cloud of fumes burst out. Inside, they found the severely decomposed body of a woman. She was submerged in some kind of murky, yellowish-brown liquid. Her head was separated from her body and was floating beside it. Half of her body was filled with holes, and the other half was almost completely dissolved. In the bathroom, they also found several glass bottles containing corrosive chemicals. It was clear that the perpetrators were trying to destroy evidence. They found several empty air freshener spray cans too. After testing, The corrosive liquid in the metal box was identified as industrial hydrochloric acid. On the toolbox and the air freshener bottles, the police found fingerprints belonging to Huang David and Yumelin. Based on the evidence at the scene, the police immediately arrested them on murder charges. The next day, the autopsy results showed that a gel-like substance that could dissolve was found on the surface of the victim's body. It was stuck tightly to the skin, flesh, and bones. Some parts of the body had dissolved, but most of her teeth were still intact and not corroded. Near the left ear of the skull, there was a 13.5 centimeters crack with 3 small bone fragments embedded in it. The skull injury happened while the victim was still alive, and it was likely the cause of death. It was estimated that the victim was killed 1 to 2 weeks before being discovered. Since their arrest, David and Lynn refused to reveal the victim's identity. The police then started going through recently reported missing persons. 3 days later, they found a lead. About a week earlier, a woman in Jianlong, a city around 9 kilometers south of Shatin, reported that her roommate had gone missing. Her roommate went missing after leaving the house before dawn. She left around 5 a.m. on May 6. At that time, the police conducted an investigation, but couldn't find any trace of her. The missing person was named Huang Zijun, a 28-year-old flight attendant who worked for Cathay Pacific. Before, she lived with her family in Aberdeen, on the southern side of Hong Kong Island. To make her commute easier, Zijun moved to Geelong City and shared an apartment with her roommate to be closer to Kai Tak Airport, where she worked. The police identified the body found in Sok Pohang village by comparing dental records and confirmed it was Huang Zijun. It was discovered that on May 6th, Zijun was supposed to fly abroad with her airline according to her work schedule. However, 2 hours before the flight, she claimed to feel unwell and requested 4 days of sick leave. After the 4 days were up, she still didn't return to work and couldn't be reached. Then the airline contacted her roommate and found out she was missing. According to her roommate, around 5 a.m. on May 6th, they were both in their apartment in Geelong City. Most of the other residents were still asleep, but suddenly their home phone rang. Zijun answered the call, and after speaking for a bit, she changed her clothes and got ready to leave. Her roommate, who was in the next room, was woken up by the phone ringing. She got up and opened her door to see what was going on. She saw Zijun putting on her shoes. When Zijun saw her roommate, she said she was stepping out for a bit, then walked out. After that, her roommate couldn't reach her anymore, and her family also didn't know where she went. According to the roommate, 28-year-old Huang Zijun had a boyfriend named Huang David, who lived in Sok Pohang village. The roommate thought Zijun had recently had a conflict with her boyfriend, David, because she had been looking really stressed lately. She was worried that Zijun might harm herself, so she reported it to the police for help. Based on the investigation, Huang Zijun and Huang David met through a mutual friend. Huang David was an American citizen of Chinese descent. He had lived and studied in the US before moving to Hong Kong as an adult. To others, David seemed to come from a wealthy family, was generous, and had a good sense of humor. He was often seen wearing gold-rimmed glasses and had a handsome appearance. But that was all just a front. He was frequently spotted shopping and dining with different women, even living with some of them. Before this incident, David was known to be dating at least 2 women at the same time, and Zijun was one of them. When Zijun first met David, she was instantly charmed by him because he was fluent in English. Initially, their relationship was very sweet. They even referred to each other as husband and wife in front of others. But then Zijun found out that her boyfriend, David, would often disappear mysteriously, sometimes for more than a month, and would be really hard to reach. As she dug deeper, Zijun discovered that David actually had another place at number 33 in Sok Pohang village, Satin district. That's when Zijun started to realize that David had been lying to her about so many things. Besides being a real American citizen, everything else about him was fake. It was also found out that he had been married before. What was even harder for Zijun to accept was finding out that David had a terrible habit. He was spending at least 1,300 Hong Kong dollars every day just to buy and use drugs. Even after learning all this, Zijin still chose to forgive him because she was deeply in love with him. To support David's daily needs, Zijin would often give him money that she earned from her job. This went on for quite a while, until one day, Zijin realized that while she was working as a flight attendant, her boyfriend was often spending time with another young woman. That woman was Yumilin, who was 27 years old and later got arrested with Hwang David. Throughout their relationship, Zijin made a lot of sacrifices for David, always hoping that one day he'd change his mind and see how genuine she was. But her humble attitude only made David more daring. Whenever he was broke, he'd suddenly remember Zijin's kindness, and to get money from her, he'd repeatedly assure her that he wouldn't see Lin anymore. But the results were rarely satisfying. As time went on, Zijin no longer had any hope for David. She decided to wait for the right moment to end things for good. 6 months before the incident, as Zijin was getting ready for a flight to England, she decided to break up with David. Worried that meeting him face-to-face might make her change her mind, Zijin wrote a breakup letter. In the letter, she said she had given everything to David, but all she got in return were repeated lies. But what's surprising is that Zijin didn't blame David for everything he had done. In the letter, she apologized, saying she was really sorry she couldn't make David happy and hoped they could still be friends even after breaking up. How naive can you be, right? Have any of you ever been like her, so blindly in love, still wanting to be friends even after being cheated on? Ridiculous. As for David's unpaid debt of 5,000 Hong Kong dollars that piled up during their relationship, she decided not to ask for it back. After reading this breakup letter, David refused to end things because he saw Zijin as his cash machine who could give him money for free. What a scumbag this guy is, seriously. At that time, David also owed 6,000 Hong Kong dollars to a car rental company for renting luxury cars. Plus, he had expenses for rent and buying drugs. If nobody was giving him money, there's no way he could cover all these costs by himself. David, who received the breakup letter, knew exactly that Zijin was just trying to use it as a way to force him to break up with Lin. So, he pretended to be soft and told Zijin he would break up with Lin. If I were this guy, I'd be so ashamed I'd want to crawl out of my own skin. Ha ha ha. In the end, this tactic worked, and once again he got forgiveness from Zijin. Her repeated forgiveness only led her further into a never-ending pit. Poor Zijin, right? Women can sometimes be so easily fooled by a man's sweet talk. Anyway, let's continue with the story. At 5 a.m., Zijin got a mysterious phone call, which her roommate had already mentioned to the police. After getting that call, she hurried out of the house and went to David's place at number 33 in Sokpokhang village. In a room on the second floor, she met David's new girlfriend, Yumilin. As soon as the two rivals met, a heated argument broke out, which quickly turned into a fight. A neighbor living across from the scene. A witness told the police that they heard two women arguing really loudly in the early morning. Not long after, they heard a man's voice, sounding like he was trying to calm them down. But from what he said, it was pretty clear he was taking sides with one of the women. The argument went on for over 10 minutes before it finally stopped. From the clues they found, it was clear that Hwang Zijin's death was closely linked to Hwang David and Yumilin. What the police didn't expect was that before they could even question them, David confessed. He admitted that he had killed Hwang Zijin and had an accomplice named Yumilin, who was 27 years old. Yumilin also confessed that she was involved in the murder. Based on what both of them said, here's what happened on the day of the incident. Yumilin, just like Hwang Zijin, was deeply in love with Hwang David, but after finding out that her boyfriend was also seeing another woman, Lin's jealousy reached its peak. In the early hours of May 6th, she couldn't stand sharing her boyfriend with another woman anymore. So she called Zijun in a provocative tone. Both Yumilin and Zijun knew about each other, but they had never met before, and this was their first encounter. The two of them ended up arguing at house number 33. They were yelling at each other, neither willing to back down, making a lot of noise that woke up the neighbors in the early morning. The argument slowly turned into a physical fight. Since a lot of neighbors were waking up, David stepped in to try and calm them down. He eventually chose Lin and broke up with Zijin. After hearing his decision, Zijin went crazy and attacked Lin. Faced with Zijin's aggressive attack, David and Lin teamed up inside the house to kill Zijin. To cover their tracks, they stripped Zijin's clothes, then beheaded her and put her head in a metal box. They also poured a lot of chemical solvents on her body. But for some reason, in the middle of the police investigation, David took back his previous confession. He admitted that he was in a relationship with Wang Zijun and also confessed to cheating on her with Yumelin, but he claimed that on the day of the incident, he wasn't involved in Zijun's murder and didn't know how she was killed. David suggested that Zijun came to his house and met Lin, which led to a conflict, and Lin accidentally killed Zijun. He insisted that the whole thing with Wang Zijun happened while he wasn't there. David only found out about all this after he got home. At Lin's request, he helped get rid of Zijun's body. At the same time, Lin took back her previous statement and claimed that it was David who killed Zijun. After that, David threatened Lin, saying that if she didn't help him deal with this, she and her family would be harmed. Feeling scared, Lin had no choice but to agree. She then went out to buy some highly corrosive chemicals and air fresheners to help David handle Wang Zijun's body. During the investigation, both David and Lin gave different explanations, so the truth couldn't be figured out. But one thing is certain: after Zijun was murdered, these two tried their hardest to cover up the whole thing. Based on the earlier investigation, the day of the incident just happened to be a workday for Zijun. However, she was confirmed to have contacted her airline employer to request 4 days of sick leave. This clearly doesn't make sense, and it's most likely that the sick leave request wasn't made by her, but by Huang David or Yumelin. The investigation also revealed that 2 of Zijun's credit cards were used multiple times between May 6th and May 10th. One of the transactions was for HKD 4,000 to buy gold. According to a handwriting expert, the signature on the gold purchase receipt at the jewelry store didn't match Wang Zijun's handwriting. Meanwhile, a female employee at the jewelry store remembered that the person who came to buy the gold was a woman. When the police showed a picture of the suspect, Yumelin, the employee confirmed that was the person. Then, on May 8th, a flower shop received a call from a woman claiming to be Wang Zijun, wanting to order flowers. On the same day, Zijun's younger sister did receive those flowers. However, by May 8th, Wang Zijun was already dead, so there's no way the order came from her. Turns out, all this was done by David and Lin to make people think that Wang Zijun was still alive. A year after the incident, the case went to trial at the Hong Kong High Court. Huang David and Yumelin were charged with murder and destroying a body using chemicals. In court, both defendants, Huang David and Yumelin, only admitted to the charge of destroying the body and denied the murder charge. They kept blaming each other. David insisted he wasn't involved in the case. He said that the victim, Wang Zijun, had a key to his house and could come in anytime she wanted. As for how Zijun ended up dead in his house, he claimed he had no idea. Lin, on the other hand, said that on the day of the incident, David and Zijun went into the bedroom to do cocaine while she stayed in the living room watching TV. After a while, Lin went to the bedroom to look for David and found Zijun lying still on the bed. Realizing something was wrong, Lin immediately asked David to call the police and emergency services, but David refused all her requests. He also warned Lin that if she dared to tell anyone about this, she would be killed. Then, both Huang David and Yumelin were charged by the prosecutor with serious crimes. Since the death penalty hadn't been abolished in Hong Kong at that time, they could face a death sentence if found guilty. The trial for this case went on for 19 days. After deliberating, all 7 jurors agreed that both defendants were guilty. The Hong Kong High Court then delivered its verdict, declaring Huang David and Yumelin guilty of murder and body disposal, sentencing them to death. After the verdict was announced, both David and Lin didn't accept the decision and filed an appeal. 3 years after the incident, the Hong Kong court reviewed the case again, where David and Lin denied the murder charges. The court appointed 7 jurors, 6 men and 1 woman, to participate in the trial. The prosecution argued that both suspects were involved in a love triangle with the victim, Wang Zijun. Huang Zijin's death was likely caused by someone who wanted to end the love triangle and took the chance to get money to cover their drug expenses. The prosecution also pointed out that both suspects had a habit of using drugs, which made them spend a lot of money on it. By the time the suspects were caught, the credit card limit on Huang Zijin's card was almost maxed out. During the trial, something unexpected happened. The defendant, Yumilin, suddenly retracted all her previous confessions in front of the jury. She admitted that she was the only one responsible for everything. She claimed that after getting into a physical fight with Zijun, she acted in self-defense and struck back using a hammer. She didn't expect that her attack would kill Zijun instantly. She said all these actions were hers alone and had nothing to do with Huang David. This case went through a 29-day review, and the jury has reached a decision. After deliberation and the trial, the court decided that the defendants, Huang David and Yumilin, were not found guilty of murder. However, Yumilin was found guilty of manslaughter. Considering that Huang David had already served more time in prison than the sentence for illegally disposing of a body, he was released right there in the courtroom. Meanwhile, Yumilin was found guilty of manslaughter and will serve the rest of her prison sentence, which is 2 more years, until 1994. With this statement, Yumilin managed to change the outcome of the retrial with her new confession. There's one more thing about this case that's worth mentioning. While awaiting trial, Huang David managed to win over the heart of a prison social worker named Sally. They got married in prison. During the retrial, Sally, who was sitting in the audience, suddenly ran out, kneeled down, and cried, telling everyone that her husband, Huang David, was an innocent man who should be set free. This act sparked a public debate. Many admired Huang David's extraordinary charm. However, Huang David and Sally didn't stay together forever. They divorced in 1998. After this incident, the case was adapted into 2 movies. One was called Remake of a Woman, 1993, which portrayed the special relationships and emotional bonds between one man and 3 women. The other movie, The Strange Case of Teacher Wrong, became more famous than the first. This film focused more on the court trial. It's said that while shooting The Strange Case of Teacher Wrong, Huang David had already been released. He once told the director that he could provide some details about the case, but the director declined. After the film was released, David felt that since the court had declared him not guilty, the movie wrongly made him look guilty, which led to controversy and the film being taken down at the time. To this day, this event has gradually been forgotten, but many people in Hong Kong will never forget that there was once a strange and mysterious murder case in this village. That's the story for today. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. If you have any questions about this case, feel free to comment below. See you in the next story. See you.